welcome to the Wednesday, November 13th, 2024 Garrison Board of Education Regular Workshop Business Meeting. Let's see, will you call the roll, please?
Jocelyn Apizello.
Excuse for now.
Eric Arnold.
Here.
Jennifer Harrington Wilson.
Here.
Dan Jasnow.
Here.
Peter Lester.
Here.
Ted Schott.
Here.
Sarah Thomas.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up, I have accept agenda changes. Do I have any recommended changes to this evening's agenda? No. All right. Be resolved, Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accept the agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please? Second. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Thank you. All right, we're going to begin this evening with an athletic report, the end of season report. I'll hand it over to Dr. Stoll.
Thank you, Sarah. Members of the Garrison community, guests, and it's nice to have guests here, isn't it?
It's really nice to have people
Yeah,
there.
our guests from Putnam Valley. Usually don't have a packed house like this. But I'd like to start off this evening. I'm going to go to the podium for my superintendent's report. Then I'm going to pause, let Putnam Valley present, and then we will finish my superintendent's report later. So this evening, we're going to talk a little bit about our modified sports program. We had a very successful season. We have a couple of guests that are going to help me with it. We're going to listen to a wonderful presentation by our esteemed colleagues at Putnam Valley High School in the Putnam Valley Central School District. And we're going to end our superintendent's report this evening with a New York State assessment and data. So if I can ask Aria, Annabella, and Mira to come up and help me this evening, I really appreciate it. And yes, I'm going to put the three of you on the spot at some point. So we're going to talk about modified girls soccer. And we have three soccer players here with us tonight. This is our 10th year that we have merged with Haldane. Coaches, you can see up there Marissa and Kevin. We have 13 Garrison students that played on the girls modified soccer and 7 Haldane athletes. You guys finished with a winning record, right? And you played 7 games this year. So I'm going to ask you, and I'll take the mic down. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Any of you can answer it. So what has been the most rewarding part of participating this season in modified girls soccer?
I feel like the most parts, like, wait, is it participate?
Yeah, what was the most gratifying?
So, like, I feel like connecting with the Haldane team, girls as well, because I feel like if the Haldane girls didn't play with us, our team would have been smaller, and we wouldn't have had a, like, better chance to make new friends and connect with other girls that we have never met before.
Thanks, Mira. Did anyone want to share a memorable moment? Maybe something that really a highlight of the girls modified soccer season. Would anybody want to share a highlight? All right, Annabelle. That's why we have a mic.
I think a memorable time that we had this season was, I don't remember which game it was, but we had a certain game that we played where the last quarter of our game, we all kind of came together and sort of like played our best. And I think that was probably our team's like proudest moment. Like we all really felt like we did something and like something that we did mattered. And so I feel like we all just really supported each other. And so I think that was really nice.
Their voice is great. It's fun. Who wants to answer this question? How has being part of a team impacted your whole school experience and maybe your growth personally? All right, Ari.
Being part of the soccer team is definitely like something to look forward to when you go to after school.
you can really like understand how people are like connecting and feeling about soccer, and yeah, and like the connections you made with your friends are really nice to go. It's really nice to look forward to, and it also brings into school because you can relate with other people about their team sports.
Thank you so much. Anything else you girls want to share before we let you go home and study? Just say yes, we're going to study. Anything else you want to share, final thoughts that you want to let the community know or the Board of Education know?
So most of the girls on the team never played soccer before, and so I feel like since like most of us never played soccer before, we grouped together and we got better at soccer together, and we made better friendships as we played soccer. And I feel like most of us learned better teamwork through soccer, and we're just like I feel like we were better people since we played soccer.
Thank you so much, Mira. You may say one more thing. I thought your voice was better.
Yeah, I feel like even when like some players weren't playing their best or like somebody had an off moment, we were all really supporting each other because, like Miro said, some people hadn't played before, others were experienced, but either way, we all kind of like supported each other. So it was never kind of like anybody else like being rude to anybody. Like it was never like a personal attack if you didn't do your best. It was always like you did good, like next time we can do better. Like it was always like try and grow from your last experience rather than like you did bad, like that kind of thing. It was really everybody was supporting each other. So I think we had a really good team this year, and I'm really happy I decided to play soccer.
Girls, thank you very much for presenting. Thank you. We can go home now.
Or you can stay for the rest of the presentation.
Yes, you certainly can. The assessment.
Finally, assessment, later we'll have some treasurer's reports. They're really nice.
I know that's Sarah's time, you can treasure report. But I just wanted to have a couple of our student athletes come and talk to the community and the board about how important and how impactful athletics are. And that's why it's critically important that we continue to strengthen our athletic program. Girls soccer was not the only athletic modified program that we participated in. This was our first year merging with Haldane for our cross country. We had 7 Garrison athletes with 5 Haldane athletes. We had 4 meets, and the student athletes did incredibly well. We also, this is our 20th year participating in 8-man modified football. I actually saw a game or two, and it really was instructional. And the students are learning the game of football, and it was quite interesting to watch it and quite instructive. And I have to tell you, I've spoken to a lot of the students when they come back from these athletics. It really is impactful in their life, and we heard from 3 girls this evening. They played 4 games this year, and parts of the games are instructional at the end where they're running plays and working on kind of the strategy of football. So at this point, I'm going to pause my superintendent report. I'm going to hand it over to our colleagues at Putnam Valley, and I invite Dr. Luft, the superintendent of schools, up to the microphone, and we'll put your report up.
Thank you.
And Mr. Bello, the high school principal. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. A little bit about myself. My name is Jeremy Luft, and I have the honor and privilege to serve as the superintendent of schools for the Putnam Valley School District. A little bit of irony here, and I know Mr. Mello will share the same. I happen to be a former student of the Putnam Valley School District. So while I grew up there and went to school prior to the high school being built, I experienced what the Garrison students, in fact, do experience. So I grew up in Putnam Valley, attended school there, and then in 10th grade, I went to Panis High School in the Lakeland School District. So for 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, I lived very similar lives to what the Garrison students do as well. Mr. Mello will share himself. Also grew up in Putnam Valley and attended Putnam Valley schools. There may be other people in this room who also grew up in Putnam Valley and attended Putnam Valley schools, but I'll let him introduce himself. So really our goal here this evening is the more of a discussion this is and the less of a presentation, the more impactful it's going to be. So we have slides to help sort of guide what we're going to talk about, but I really hope this is an open dialogue. I don't want to ruin your meeting. I ruin my own all the time, but I'll take questions from the crowd. I'll take questions from the board. Again, more of a discussion, the better. I do want to quickly recognize two of our board members from Putnam Valley are here as well. Sam Oliverio and Crystal Hernandez are here to support us, along with little Ella, one of our kindergarten students. She's pretty much one of my best friends at school. I see her all the time. So you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Thank you. I am Matt Mello, the principal of Putnam Valley High School. And like Dr. Luff, I grew up in Putnam Valley. At that time, we didn't have a high school. I ended up going to Lakeland High School. I think when I was there, we were going to Lakeland. A couple years after that, the board decided to send the students to Panis. And prior to that, prior to me being, going to high school, students had a choice. So they had a choice of Peekskill, Panis, or Lakeland. So kind of similar, situation that Haldane shares, and Garrison shares. And I know that Dr. Luck and I talked about this, from the beginning. You always felt like when I went to Lakeland, you felt a little bit like an outsider when you were there. Not ever really identifying as like, a member of their community, but as a member of another community, kind of visiting, right, and receiving an education. And so we talked a lot about how we don't ever want that to be the situation for students from Garrison. And I think it's really important that they assimilate, bring their culture, share that with us, and we get to learn from them and their experiences as much as they can learn from us. And so we're excited about that.
So a little secret we have is we've always been very envious of the school districts that had the opportunity to welcome Garrison students. I know when I returned to Putnam Valley 8 years ago, I had a conversation with then Superintendent Mitchell, like, hey, why not us? Unfortunately, that conversation didn't go anywhere, but you can imagine how thrilled I was when Dr. Albano reached out a few years ago and asked if we'd be willing to host a team of board members to come check out what we're doing in Putnam Valley. And it was nice to be like, yeah, I think we have a lot to offer and a lot to show. And I'm thrilled to see in the 2 short years in which Putnam Valley has been an option, the number of students that have taken advantage of all I think to offer, that Putnam Valley has to offer. And we're extremely proud of everything that we have. For the 3 young ladies, I can say with certainty, our girls' sports far dominate our boys' sports. So. I would have to lie if there was 3 young boys here. In this case, girls' sports are definitely dominant. Just my quick little sales pitch if you're interested. So we spoke a little bit about myself, Mr. Mello. Dr. Letitia Payne is our assistant principal. She couldn't be here this evening, but we did want to take an opportunity to introduce her, as well as our board president. Barbara's feeling a little bit under the weather, so she wasn't able to be here as well, but she did want to send her wishes along to everyone. So when Putnam Valley High School was opened nearly 20 years ago, this vision of child first and foremost was really the first thing that the building did as a collective, and it's really stuck with us as our sort of guiding principle throughout everything we do. Right? What does this look like for the children? Keeping the best interest in the children in mind. Now, a lot's happened since that time, and I would say truly within the last 10 years, there has been an academic renaissance in Putnam Valley. And I take no credit for it. It was well underway when I came back 8 years ago, and all of my job has been to help foster all the great things that have happened. But we hear a lot about our Authentic Science Research program. We'll talk more about that later. The International Baccalaureate program. We've moved to a block schedule. We moved to a later start, which I think helps the Garrison kids get there without having to wake up even earlier. Maybe it makes it harder, I'm not sure, but we have a later start for all of our high school students. Again, lots of research around the impacts of starting later for students. And now we're in the process of bringing in the middle years program, into IB middle years program in our middle school. That's going to continue for 9th and 10th graders in the high school. And it's really been profound, all the changes that we've been able to incorporate in a very short period of time. The graphic on the bottom is a culmination of several years of work involving all constituents, parents, students, teachers, all of our staff, to come up with really what our core values were. So we did surveys, we did focus groups, and ultimately we landed on our 4 core values for Putnam Valley: community, opportunity, resilience, and empowerment. And that really guides all of our work. Last year, all of our district-wide goal focused on the community and building a stronger school community. This year, it's about opportunity, finding students new opportunities to excel in all that we have to offer. As Mr. Mello had mentioned, we don't have Garrison students. We have Putnam Valley students who reside in Garrison. And we truly believe that's what they are. I hope the students that are here this evening will echo those thoughts. They're never referred to. In fact, it was weird the other day when we had Dr. Stoll came over and wanted to meet with some of the Garrison students. We never make announcements like, well, the Garrison students, please report to. But in this case, we sort of had to. I remember for freshman foundations, which again, we'll talk a little bit about, we have 100 and something students in the cafeteria, and I walked up to Mr. Mello and I said, where are all the Garrison kids? So the first year there was only a couple kids. This year we had 13 incoming freshmen, and he goes, I don't know. Which is the right answer, right? Because there wasn't 13 kids from Garrison sitting at one table, right? They were already interspersed amongst all of the other students in the cafeteria, meeting their big buddies, and really part of the Putnam Valley culture. And that's really something that we continue to echo with our students and our staff. So this is just sort of broad strokes of some of the things that we hope to discuss this evening. Again, this is your meeting, so you guys let us know if you want to hear more about any one thing or less about something else. But really, it's about supporting the whole child, both academics, extracurriculars, social, emotional, and cultural arts. And those are some of the topics we hope to cover this evening. Sorry, a little bit about Big Buddies.
Yeah, I'll briefly answer this. So, we, I don't know, maybe about 4 years ago, I think actually 4 or 5 years ago, during the pandemic year, 2019, 2020, we brought in this Big Buddy program where we have seniors who sign up to be Big Buddies, and they're Big Buddies for the freshmen that are coming in. And basically what it does is it gives them somebody that they can connect with. I think that first year we might have had about 25 Big Buddies. And now we have close to like 75 students that are Big Buddies. So like we have like a Big Buddy that has like 2 or 3 students that are attached to them, 2 or 3 freshmen. And basically what they do is they help guide that freshman to the first couple of days of school. And then they're somebody that they can connect with throughout the whole entire year with any kind of questions, issues. Sometimes we reach out to the Big Buddy like, hey, we're having kind of like a problem with this person, and that Big Buddy's like, oh, I got a great connection with them. And, they're able to go and talk to them and help them feel, a little bit more of our high school community and understand, the behaviors, things like this that might be expected of them in high school. It's really a great way for our seniors to be leaders in the building and really develop and grow their own culture for the building for those students that are coming in. So we're really excited about the Big Buddy program. We're blown away by the amount of seniors that want to be part of that program and stay in touch with their freshmen, what they call little buddies, throughout the course of the whole year. So I'm very excited about this. And at this time, I'm going to invite Amelia McCarthy. Is Meg here?
Here.
I'm going to invite Amelia up, McCarthy. So Amelia is one of our Putnam Valley students from Garrison. And she's a 10th grader, it's her second year, and I'll let her elaborate a little bit more about her experience as a freshman last year coming in.
So when I came in last year, I was pretty terrified. The school was really big compared to what I was used to, and the Big Buddy program was definitely a huge relief. Because I didn't know a single person in that school, and having someone that was there just to wave at in the hallways, and who would help me through finding a difficult class or finding some extra help for a class or anything like that was definitely a huge relief, and I really appreciated it.
Thanks, Amelia. Does anybody have any questions for myself, Dr. Luft, Amelia, about the Big Buddy program?
How big is your class size, like grade level?
So we average, I think we're like 120 is the smallest grade and 150 is the largest grade. So 120, 128, 138, 150, something like along those lines.
I have a question for Amelia, if you don't mind. Can you talk a little bit about what your experience was like looking at the school options and what led you to choose Putnam Valley?
Well,
growing up in Garrison, I've been in Garrison since I was in kindergarten. It's always been clear that there were two choices, O'Neill or Haldane. So that's kind of what I've always been thinking of. And I had a school set that I was going to, and in early 8th grade, it became clear that there was another choice. And that was kind of weird because we had all never heard of that choice. And we had no idea what Putnam Valley was or even where it was.
It's not a place to try.
No, not really. But eventually touring the school, I found like everything I liked. There was something I liked at every school, but there were more, I found a lot of options at Putnam Valley, and I found it to be a place that I could branch out and really meet a lot of different people.
Great, thank you.
I have a question for Amelia, but it's not about the Big Buddy programs. I don't know if you guys want to jump around a little bit or.
Fire away.
She's here, so you might as well put her on spot.
I'd love to hear, I know you just started the science research program, which I think you're gonna get to later. That's a 3-year course starting in sophomore year. Could you speak a little bit about what made you select that and what you're excited about, your experience in that course?
Yeah, science research was when we had our presentation, like going to visit Putnam Valley for the first time. It was kind of a pretty big deciding factor for me, honestly, to pick Putnam Valley. I really like the idea of a 3-year course, studying something over a long period of time. What stood out to me was studying something that you're interested in, which looks completely different for everyone. The 8th grade capstone project that we did, that I think we were the first ones to do that project, is relating to what I'm doing my science research project on, which was definitely really helpful.
Thank you.
Try to stay close, I'm sure they'll have more questions.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, I give Amelia a lot of credit, to be like a trailblazer, a student coming from Garrison over to Putnam Valley, and like you say, it's not like you had a connection with older siblings or students that you had known from Garrison that were at this school. There's a lot of courage, right, that comes forward, through that. And I'm just amazed that, Amelia and, who's the other one that came on? Oh, what's that? Raphael, that's right. Yeah, who came in last year, and it was just like they took a chance, right? They took a chance on Putnam Valley, and we're really glad that they did, because I think that, we get to learn a lot from them as well, like I said earlier, so we're really proud of that.
Remember talking about, we were just hoping for one. Yeah, break the ice.
I have a question for her. Did you find the proximity of Putnam Valley difficult at all? 'Cause it's a little further than, say, Haldane. I don't know about O'Neill's a distance too, but is that problematic for you ever?
It definitely was in the beginning, like going there for the first few times, it felt long, it felt like a really long bus ride. But over time, it just starts to feel like a routine. It just feels like every other bus ride, and it's a little bit farther, and that, sure, I'd love to live closer to all my friends in the school, but it's just something that you kind of get used to, and it really wasn't a huge deal.
Yeah, question back there.
So yeah, to add on to Vanessa's question, so since you've been there for 2 years now and you've made friends, how is the socializations, if you want to go and hang out with friends at their house, is it hard to drive back and forth?
It's not gonna lie, it is something I have to think about, factoring in 30 more minutes to drive to a friend's house. But it's not something that me or my friends try to make a huge deal, or it's just something that we just live a little bit farther apart. And Putnam Valley, I haven't explored Putnam Valley that much, but I feel like it's pretty spread out. So there's some people that live almost as far apart from each other as I do. So it was never a huge deal. It really readjusted pretty well.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Putnam Valley is fairly large geographically. We have students that live in this Roaring Brook area, and we kind of kid that coming from Canada to school every day. So it's one of those where they probably have a 30-minute ride into school in the morning. Just where the roads are and, you know, how traffic might move through there. But, it is, I think, a little bit of an inconvenience, right, the ride back and forth. But I can't wait until we have seniors from Garrison who are driving and, you know, like, that might change a little bit of that dynamic, you know, for them, right? You know, you might be driving like 4 or 5 people or something. License and only get a 2-seater, you know, it should be fun. Are there more questions about?
Anyone else? No, and if you have any questions, please just like jump in.
Absolutely. And I'll say this, we start, Putnam Valley High School, our first day, we just have the freshmen in. We call it freshman foundations. And what we're trying to do in that day, the big buddies come in as well. So it's time for them to meet the big buddies. It's time for them to get used to the building. They go on like, you know, a tour of their classes. So we ring the bell, you know, they go to a class for like 15, 20 minutes. They get to meet their teacher. And then we ring a bell. So without the other traffic in the building, the freshmen are able to really orient themselves with, you know, where everything is and kind of how everything flows throughout the course of the day. And I think that's really beneficial for those freshmen, a little low pressure, right? Because I think, right, first day freshman year, and you're like, there's seniors here, there's all these people we don't even know, and, you know, what could possibly happen on day one? This could be really intimidating. So we like to kind of ease everybody into it. And then day 2, we bring everybody in. And it's like, oh, wow, this place is, you know, pretty bustling in the halls in between periods. All right.
You're running out of that slide.
Okay.
Gotta find out. So you guys don't have to memorize the schedule. So this is just a glimpse as to what our academic day looks like. Monday, students meet with all their teachers in what's really a 9-period day, which is really 8 academic periods. Then we go into our block schedules, Tuesday through Friday. That schedule always stays the same. So if there's a snow day, we skip that day, we continue going. But really what we're going to focus on here is that middle column, that community lunch. And I think one of the things that makes Putnam Valley very unique is the fact that every student in Putnam Valley High School has lunch at the same time. So that gives students opportunities where you may not have classes with your friends, but you're guaranteed to have lunch with your friends. It also provides a wealth of opportunities for clubs, extracurricular activities, extra help, office hours for teachers, as well as professional time for us to meet with our teachers. So you would think that it was way more chaotic than it is. Students are in the cafeteria, students are in the hallways, students are in the gym. But one of the things that is kind of amazing, and I think this is something that's very unique to Putnam Valley, I don't know of any other high school that has high school recess, which is what I would call it. So you see here 11 to 12 graders have 55 minutes. The last 15 minutes of that, teachers are in their classrooms available for office hours if they need them. But our 11th and 12th graders go to the cafeteria, they get in the panini line. Paninis. I can't buy enough panini makers. So once they get their panini, they're off. They're in the wellness center, which we'll show you later. They're in the gym. They're outside in the courtyard. Kids are running, burning energy, getting exercise. You would think it was an elementary school recess period. But 11th and 12th, 9th and 10th graders are active, running around, getting exercise, getting some of that energy out before they continue their day. So they're able to eat together, and they're able to play together, and they're able to prepare for the second half of the day. Go ahead. Be careful, you're gonna find yourself behind the mic soon.
So I know that housing, they have like the seniors can go into town and get lunch, and the freshmen have to stay in the cafeteria. Is that the same with Putt Valley? Like, do freshmen have to stay in the cafeteria for lunch, or can they go into the courtyard as well?
So everybody can go anywhere during the lunch period. We do have a closed campus. I don't know if you've been to Putnam Valley. There's not a lot of places to hang out or eat, so you're pretty much stuck on campus. We do have special areas for juniors and seniors in terms of a senior lounge where they can hang out. But during that lunch period, anybody can go anywhere they want. You want to go to the library, get extra help, work on your academics, you can do that. You want to go to the gym, the wellness center, the courtyard, everybody's welcome to go anywhere within the building. Literally the entire building is open with supervised, with staff, but you have access to your teachers, you have access to your friends, and you have access to all of the facilities we have to offer during the time.
If I may just, the first tour, I think you had board members come over 4 to 3 years ago. You purposely invited us to see the community lunch, I believe, which did feel like we were getting run over by a lot of high school students. But one of the things that I was most impressed with was how the staff was melded into that community lunch. There were teachers in every corner, and they weren't we're watching you present. They were very much incorporated in with kids coming up and talking to them. So there was that lovely blending of supervision, and yet the kids can still have a lot of freedom, which I thought was really interesting. And thank you for making sure we were a part of that. It was a really unique experience. I think some of the board members did feel like they were about to get run over. Kids.
Our former high school principal, when she presented it, I was like, you are the what? But it ended up being a fabulous thing. And again, it seems scary, but I'd say there's more and more districts going that. We have districts in visiting us during our community lunch all the time, as more and more districts go to that type of schedule. Good.
Yeah, control chaos, right? It's like it's control chaos, but it really is a good vibe.
I'll give you my question. You want to talk about academics?
I guess so. That's what we're here for, right? Yeah, and I'll say this, I think our staff does an incredible job of focusing on the social emotional welfare of the students. I think, we tell them and we stress this to everybody in the building. It's about making a connection with the students, being able to support all students, and making sure that every student in the building feels like they have an adult that they can go to, no matter what. So we focus a lot on the social emotional piece and making sure kids feel like they have a place to go. I can talk for a minute about, we're an IB World School. IB World Schools, there's a 5-year reevaluation. So IB sends a team. We just had a reevaluation this year. We just completed our 5 years of being an IB school. We're really excited about it. But that's one of the things that they told us. They said the thing that really came about, and they met with groups of students, they met with staff members, our administrators, parents, all separately. So I couldn't get in there and be trying to control what was being said and how people reacted. The 2 IB evaluators met with these different groups independently. And the thing that they said, they stressed, was that there's this incredible sense of family that we have there at Putnam Valley. And I think that has a lot to do with the way that our staff focuses on the students and the students' needs, and also we deal with academics as well, right? But I think that's kind of like the vision there at Putnam Valley, making sure that they feel like they have a comfortable place to learn and then they can learn. All right, so yeah, we are an IB World School. We had an IB presentation, and IB is a very deep program. There's a lot that goes on with IB. I was, on the, forefront of bringing IB into the high school. I could talk forever. I'm very passionate about it, believe firmly in the IB diploma program, which is for 11th and 12th graders. I think it's done wonders for our staff and our students. So I'm not going to go into depth about IB. If anybody wants to ask questions about IB, I would sit here and talk all night about it. But we do have IB nights, information nights, and you could always reach out at any time to learn more about the IB program.
One question on the IB. Those classes in 11th and 12th grade are for college credit still, or do you take an AP exam? How does that work?
So similar to APs, if you score high enough in those courses, you can receive college credit. But I think here's the thing that if you talk to any of our teachers that have been teaching IB classes, there is it's a different type of philosophy than just you're going to take this IB or AP course, and in May you're going to take a test, and that's what you get. IB has several ways to assess students' growth. There's what they call an internal assessment. You're talking about choice. Internal assessment is in every course. There's an internal assessment. There's the language courses have what they call an internal oral assessment, where it's actually a 10-minute speaking assessment. So like in your ELA, IB language and literature course, and your Spanish, French, and Mandarin courses, it's a 10-minute speaking assessment. But there's choice within there. So every one of those, they choose what they want to investigate, and they're writing basically like a 5-page research paper on a topic that they chose. We had a student write about the other French Revolution, which was they were into fashion, and it was a French Revolution, Paris Revolution in the 1960s that they wrote about for their history internal assessment. So your final assessment or your final grade in an IB course takes into account your internal assessments as well as what they call predicted grades. Teachers assign like a predicted grade to what they believe the student should get. And then there's an external assessment. And the external assessments are typical, like the AP exams in May. The difference is there are 2 days of examinations, and they're heavily writing influenced, and all those writing pieces have choice built into them. So I was a history teacher for a long period of time. I'll use history as an example. One of your essays that you have to write in history, you're given 24 different prompts, and you can choose 2 of those that you want to write about. So, it's not, here's your prompt, everybody's writing about this one essay. You get to look through that list and determine what you feel is your area of strength, and you get to write about that. The other thing that IB incorporates is they're heavily weighted on questioning and reflection. And that questioning, how to teach students to question, and then how to reflect on what they have learned. And I think that those are the things that really set IB courses apart from, just going into a course, getting a 4 on it, and now, oh great, I get college credit for this course. These students are learning research techniques. I taught AP World History for 13 years, and there was no really research component, to that course, right? There's no research requirement. Every IB course has a research requirement. So if they're taking multiple research IB courses, they're doing multiple research, papers and projects and things like that. Up on the board, you can see all the different areas of courses that we have in IB.
I'm just gonna, I think, just so everybody understands too, you don't have to take the entire IB. Our kids can dip in and out and do some of these courses, so it's open to every student, but you can do all of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, so basically we're an IB for all school, which means that in 11th grade, every student is enrolled in an IB English language and literature course. So everybody's going to be exposed to it. It's year 1 of the course. Students can choose to go on to year 2. I think we have 98 of the 138 students chose to go on to year 2 of IB language and literature. Which, I don't know if you realize that means seniors have to work till like mid-May when that exam is. IB has really eliminated that whole senioritis kind of aspect because a lot of these students, most of our students average 3 IB courses that they're taking. There is also what they call the IB diploma, which is 6 IB courses plus the core. The core constitutes an extended essay, which is about a 15-page paper that they have to write over 2 years. It is this creativity, activity, and service component, and it is a course called Theory of Knowledge, which really focuses on teaching them to be, to understand, what they know. How is it that I know something? And one of my favorite lessons that I saw in the Theory of Knowledge course was, what sound does a dog make, right? And, they asked the students to look at this, how is it written in all these different languages? So what sound does a dog make in, Japanese, in, Mandarin, and all this, and it's all different. And so the sound that you're hearing and the sound that you're expressing here in your culture from where you're from is different than the sound that somebody else is hearing somewhere else. So how do you really know the sound that a dog makes, right? And that's kind of the Theory of Knowledge course, and the things that they're looking at. How do you know what you know, right? And now you have to prove this is why, make statements as to why you know what you know. And it really gets them to think deeply. And the other thing I'll say is Theory of Knowledge is embedded into every one of the IB classes. So we talk about college credit. Yes, they can receive college credit. There are standard level courses and there are higher level courses. Higher level courses, and they're scored on a scale of 1 to 7. Higher level courses, if you're scoring a 4 to a 7, students have chances of getting college credit, just like they would in an IP exam if they scored a 3, 4, or 5, in an AP exam. And then SL courses, there are some colleges that accept credits for SL courses as well. On top of that, if you complete the diploma program, we have students that went to college and they went in as sophomores because they received 36 college credits, 32 or 36 college credits for their IB diploma program work. So if they were successful in the IB diploma program, we have students that went into Binghamton as a sophomore. The SUNYs all recognize that, and many other schools do as well. I guess I can talk all night about it.
I'll let you keep moving, thank you.
All right, so we also have the authentic science research. I think we have a slide on that. We do have AP courses. We push the AP courses down into 9th and 10th grade. And understand that that's really, really challenging, right? It's difficult to say or make an argument that a 9th grader has the academic maturity needed to be successful in an AP course. But they fight through it. Maybe they don't score as high as, students that are taking it in 11th and 12th grade, but it's setting them up to be successful in whatever they're doing next. So, we're not really concerned with their AP scores, as a 9th grader taking an AP class. We're not concerned about the AP scores. We're really concerned about what they're learning, the skills they're developing, because they're challenging themselves in a very rigorous course in 9th and 10th grade.
So that's something that I know comes up often. We get compared with other school districts based upon AP scores. Now, if you just inherently think about the fact we cannot offer any AP exams, but the reason why we do it is because we think it's an opportunity to offer underclassmen rigorous academic opportunities. We don't expect them to achieve at the same standard as junior or senior in other districts that are taking that same exact exam. So we understand by offering this to students that the test data is not going to be reflective of the students we have, but we're also the only district that's offering these exams to 9th and 10th graders versus 11th and 12th graders. In comparison, if you look at our IB examination scores, we're very proud of how well our juniors and seniors do. So I just know that that question's been asked before. Why does your AP scores, or why are they so low compared to others? But it's really not an apples to apples comparison when you look across districts and who the students attempting. I give all the credit in the world to a 9th grader who's sitting there taking an AP course, and then their scores being compared to a senior in another district.
Do you have pretty high participation rate among the lower classes in the AP courses, and how does that compare to the IB program?
Yeah, we pretty much have two sections of AP World History. There's two sections of AP World History, so we're talking like 40 students, right? 40 to 50 students in AP World History, AP European History, language and composition. So all those, we're seeing like two sections of that. We're really happy about that. Some schools are like strict requirements, as far as getting into an AP course. We're open. If you want to challenge yourself, go for it. I don't care what your grades were in 8th grade. If you feel like you want to challenge yourself in an AP course, why not, right? Why not? Maybe in 8th grade you weren't mature enough to really be settled into a higher level course, but now in high school you're ready for it, and so we let them in. And then
IB.
What's that?
IB's the same.
IB's, all around IB courses are the same thing. Students can challenge themselves anywhere that they want. As far as IB goes, and I think we have this wide array of IB course offerings to meet every student's needs. As an example, we brought in IB dance. We have a lot of students that dance outside of school, and they wouldn't necessarily be like your typical IB diploma program, candidates. But they're like, wow, we can like actually learn deeply about dance. Not just going out there, but they're involved in choreography. They've got to, create their own dances. They've got to learn about, dances from other areas of the world and, compare those. It's a pretty rigorous kind of thing that they get to dive deeply in, and they get to dance, during the school day. So, and get credit for it. It's really cool.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
How did the school qualify to offer this IB programming?
Oh boy, so we're starting the MYP, the middle years program process in 9th and 10th grade. Like looking at that right now, it's a pretty elaborate process. So you can't just be like, we're going to teach IB courses. Right. You have to apply to IB. You could go into this candidacy stage. During that candidacy stage, you have to get your staff trained in IB. So we sent a lot of staff out for training in specific courses that they were going to teach. And then they have to come up with, to develop this IB curriculum, which is different from other curriculum that teachers that might have been teaching AP chemistry. Well, the assessments and the course is different. AP, I want you to think of like breadth of knowledge, right? It's all encompassing, right? When you talk about AP, IB is more about depth, right? You're going to go deep. You're going to dive deeply into topics. So our teachers, it's really like this, like kind of a shift in educational philosophy, right? What they've been doing to what they needed to do. And like I said, this like aspect of choice. There's choice for teachers and there's choice for students when it comes to every IB course. So again, that teacher had to kind of like retrain themselves, to like, okay, how's this go? And then one of the realizations is question, right? We have to really like get our students to understand how to develop good questioning techniques, and then research and then reflection. So that's like, really at the heart of what we do with IB. And it caused our teachers to go through that same process, right? Questioning what they do, how they teach, right? Developing that, and then going through a reflective process I need to adjust my course because I was doing a little too much like AP, and now I realize I can't keep doing it that way. I have to make an adjustment. So it really like reinvigorated our staff and, how they looked at what they were doing. We had a staff that was, largely teaching for about 15 years because most of us were hired in 2000, 2001, 2002 when the high school was built. And so those teachers are now like 14 years into it. You can kind of like, I could roll out a history lesson, without a problem, right? But now I had to rethink about what I was doing, what I was asking the students to do, because it's not about the breadth of information, it's about that, how do I get them to think deeply about what they were doing? And it really did, it had a really transformational effect on our staff.
The other component of that is we had to develop a whole bunch of policies aligned with the IB philosophy. And IB sends visitation teams into our school district multiple times through that accreditation process. So they come in, they check in with us, they meet with teachers, all those constituent groups, similar to the reevaluation process we just went through. They give us feedback, and then when they come back, they want to see that we've accepted and changed what they gave us feedback. And then that ends in a multi-day visitation. Again, say they're meeting with students without adults in their room. They're meeting with teachers without administrators in the room. And they're making sure that everybody is bought into this, they understand this, they're behind this, and all of that has to happen before we've received our accreditation. So that's the process we're just completing in our middle school. It's a process we're beginning for the middle years program in the high school. And it's the same process that we just completed our reevaluation for our diploma program this past year.
And do you guys see, how long has the IB program existed at PD?
We just started our 6th year.
In your 6th year?
I guess technically our 7th year, our 7th year, because, the IB courses are all 2-year courses.
Okay.
So you start year 1, but you don't have the assessments until the following year, right? So, we've been, basically moving towards IB. We had a 5-year evaluation just now. We're starting our 6th year, but we have that first year of year 1 students who aren't seeing any of the assessments.
Are you seeing what the long-term impact is
Absolutely.
with your students, like with college applications?
Absolutely,
Awesome.
yeah. We have students getting accepted into more or different universities than we ever did before.
Wow.
I think currently we have 4 students at Cornell, and like little old Putnam Valley, every couple of years we would have been sending 1 student to Cornell. And currently there's 4 students from Putnam Valley at Cornell. And that's just pretty amazing to see. And we have students applying to, universities in Canada. We have them applying to Ireland, Budapest, Romania. So that we're starting to see them now branch out because of this IB, designation. You're seeing that other universities around the world who understand IB are able to recognize and compare our students to them. And we're hoping to see what happens this year with some of these students that are applying to these different universities than we've really seen students apply to before. So that's one piece, and I'll give you another one because I had 3 children go through the Putnam Valley School District. 2 of them went through before we had the IB program, and my youngest one graduated 2 years ago. He was not a diploma candidate, but he took 4 IB courses. And my other 2 children were blown away by the things that he was doing in high school versus what they were doing in high school. So that the students could see the difference in what was going on. My son took an IB film class, it's HL, higher level film class, and he went to college, he's at Marist, and he took a film course, freshman year, and he was helping the other students, kind of dissect films the way that he was doing in the IB film course. So, he had a distinct advantage of other students going into college because of the IB program. So absolutely. I don't want to take up, monopolize all the time with IB. Like I said, you get me going, I just can't stop. But I want to, is it all right if we move on?
Yeah.
Oh.
Did you have one question in the back there?
Yes, one question.
Sorry.
So with your, for instance, like these are like your high academic pieces. For instance, the Justice Community College and then the IB like high math. Are those happening simultaneously or are they happening as like different kind of courses? Like is that like one is qualifying for IB math and the other is qualifying for college? Like I was just wondering how they intersect or if they're all happening separately.
Yeah, so like if you're taking IB Spanish, you're also in Dutchess Community College course, right? So you're dually enrolled in IB Spanish and DCC. Same with the pre-calculus and calculus, those are both DCC courses as well. And they're IB and DCC courses. And you can also take those and not be there for the IB course. You can just take like the 1 year for statistics and pre-calculus. So you can still do that and get the DCC credit without being in the IB 2-year math course. IB math is really, it's rigorous. And you know, like, IB math has been developed for, you know, it's international, right? So all these high schools throughout the world, they're all at varying degrees of math. And IB math it's a very rigorous course. And we only offer the standard level. We don't even offer the higher level. Just standard level and higher level, it's about, you're gonna go into more topics in a higher level than you would in a standard level. Other than that, they're completely the same. So the internal assessment that I talked about before, it's the exact same internal assessment in the higher level and the standard level. And then a higher level will have another essay that you write on the second day of assessments in May. So they have an extra assessment, you know, tied to that. Otherwise, all the other assessments are exactly the same.
And we will have a parent night for 8th graders next Monday, I believe, which we can get more into depth. So for anybody who has further questions, that's a great opportunity.
We always, every fall, we have an IB information night. And I think we did a really good job of incorporating our IB students into it this year. So I would say if you want to learn more about IB, look next fall for an IB information night. You did mention that next Monday we have the 8th grade parent orientation at night. And we can always field more questions on a more individual basis at that point. And you can always email me or we have Vincent DiGregorio, who's our IB coordinator, and he'll probably talk even longer and more passionately than I do.
So just to close out this IB thing, I'm going to quickly click through the next few slides so you can get the science research, which also can take a half hour to talk about. But obviously this is something that's shared and you guys can post on your website. So here's the contact information. Vin DiGregorio is the coordinator. The Putnam Valley IB website has a tremendous bunch of resources on there if anybody wants to click on it and visit. Our IB information evening already happened for this year, but obviously next Monday is another opportunity to hear more about it, as well as individuals, Matt, Vin, or anyone else would be more than willing to provide any information. I think for me, the two most important facts about IB are, and we already touched on both, 80-something% of our seniors voluntarily take a highly rigorous course their senior year. Now, I can promise you, before we implemented IB, that was not the case. Seniors were looking for easy electives, getting through their senior year and getting out. And this program itself has single-handedly transformed the academic rigor that our seniors take on. As Matt had mentioned, students average 3 IB courses. That's across the board. 100% of our students, whether they have an IEP, or they're middle of the class or high achieving, all complete at least 1 IB course. And I think the feedback for us, everybody always asks about the credits, and so much of that is outside of our control, so it's hard to answer. The feedback we have from graduating students who come back and say, oh my God, I go to school with kids that have no idea what they're doing compared to me, right? I am so much more well prepared for college academics than any of the students in my dorm. And they 100% tie that back to their experience in IB and their experience in science research. And I think that is probably the greatest compliment we could receive from our students, regardless of how many credits they earned when they went into college, was they're going in feeling well prepared for the academic rigor of college level work that other students are not. So I don't know if I could do that before we start talking about it again. So science research, our authentic science research program was started about 10 years ago. You ready yet? I'm sure you have questions. So I always point out, if I don't care how smart anyone thinks they are, if you want to be humbled by a 16-year-old, you go to a science research symposium, and they are up there talking. I'm looking at words on my phone because I don't understand half of what they're saying. I have a doctorate, and I can't follow what they're doing. It is amazing the level of work that high school students can present, produce, research, peer review with each other, and then present at national competitions. It is single-handedly the most amazing thing I've ever seen high school students do. And we have 20 to 30 of them every year doing this, taking on this level of work and rigor. We've had students published, many students published before they leave high school. We've had students win national prizes. The district has won prize money based upon students' performances. It's really been an outstanding program. And I give all these students all the credit in the world for the amount of rigor, thought, effort, research, time. We do a thing every year where the sophomores come to the board and they start asking for mentors, right? You're asking a 10th grader to find a mentor in the field of research in which they're working. We have students find mentors in the city. We had a student with a mentor in Australia. They're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning just to connect with their mentor. It's really an impressive program and something that I know that we are very proud of. So, you have anything to add about the program? I know you spoke a little bit about it. Or any questions about science research? How it works, how it's run? You have their own fancy little classroom. Good? Also, we spoke about the opportunity for credits to city opening. So seal by literacy and civic readiness, these are two initiatives from New York State that we started offering several years ago. Seal by literacy students must do a presentation in both their native language and another language. And they have adjudicators there listening to them, asking them questions in both languages. They have to really demonstrate proficiency in both languages in order to achieve it. This has really grown exponentially over the past several years. In terms of the number of students that are awarded this, as well as the seal of civic readiness is a little bit more recent, but it still works a similar way. Students come up with a project, they have to, again, research, develop, and apply a civic project that is going to benefit their community, and again, present on that project in order to achieve that. So just a couple more academic credentials that we offer. All students are required to complete 40 hours of community service. So here's some pictures of some of the community service awards. We have students cleaning up parks and toy drives, and that's National Junior Honor Society. So it's something that start their freshman year. They're well aware of this. We have our administrators and some teachers and counselors that keep track of where they are. It's amazing the number of students that have 500, 600, 700 hours of community service by the time they graduate, but 40 hours it's actually our board policy. Students must have 40 hours of community service in order to graduate. So extracurriculars, we spoke a lot about this. The clubs take place both during lunch. That's the beauty of the community lunch period. We have all students are available during that time, so it doesn't compete with sports or other after-school activities. Many clubs meet during that time, but clubs also meet after school. And the clubs we offer are always based on student interest. If a group of students have an interest, they come forward, they present it, they find their own mentor or their own advisor, and that's how we decide what clubs run and which ones don't. Obviously, we have a tremendous arts program. Between the arts, so we just had our fall drama. You can already see the advertisement there, Girls in the Boat. We have a spring musical, art shows, film festivals. The tickets on the upper hand right are our tickets for our film festival, and obviously academics, or honor societies, National Honor Society, and a variety of academic competitions. Athletics, we spoke a little bit about athletics. It's just a list of the athletic programs that we offer in Putnam Valley. As I had mentioned before, we had an outstanding fall season. Our girls field hockey team won the sectional championship. Our girls game day cheerleading won the sectional championship and finished second in the states. Our football team and volleyball team lost the sectional semifinals. And then we had lots of individuals who did really well in cross country and swimming. The newest piece here, probably the first time it's ever been shown publicly, is our intention to offer girls flag football this spring. So that was an emerging sport a few years ago. It's really taken off across the region. We had about 21 students petition us and say, we want to play flag football. I hope not all 21 play girls lacrosse or softball, but we're trying to spread out our female athletes as far as possible, so now they'll have those options to choose between. I sort of went over the highlights. Yeah, they did pretty well. We did have a fireworks show at our homecoming. That's a picture of that, thanks to our booster club. So facilities, this is something that we're really proud of, and we've spent a lot of time, money, and energy over the last several years to improve our school facilities. We had a large bond that went out in 2018. That bond work included the establishment on the bottom right-hand side, that's our Health and Wellness Center. So it's an infield turf field house. It's approximately a third the size of a football field, 168 feet by 108 feet. So this space is used all day long. It's used by our physical education classes. It's used by academic classes. If you look closely in the back corner, you'll see white cabinets with TVs on them. Those are actually displays. So students can go in there, they can hook up their computers to displays, they can conduct labs. I'm a recovering physics teacher, which I told my students was phys ed with math. And so I got them. So this is a physics teacher's dream classroom. To be in here anytime you want, conducting labs, having students run around, doing research, having displays right there in real time, students being able to complete their work and do labs. After school, it's obviously used for in-season sports first. Then we run off-season workouts for all of our sports programs second. And then it's actually rented oftentimes in the evening between 7 and 9 p.m. for outside organizations that come in and utilize that space. On the upper right-hand corner is our Performing Arts Center. For those who come to our meeting on Monday, this is where you'll meet. We have a state-of-the-art Performing Arts Center. Nearly every dance recital in northern Westchester takes place in Putnam Valley High School. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students are through there every weekend. Some of these things last 12, 13 hours. It's always amazing. But it's really cutting edge, state of the art. We have a full-time stage manager who ensures that the rentals are done. She supervises them. One of the really cool things we have is we have students who learn through our stage manager how to utilize all this equipment. So that she runs a club, they learn how to do the lights, the sound, stage manager, all of these other things. And then our students get hired by the dance studios to do the lights and the sound and the stage management during their recital. So we have students that are gaining these talents during the school day. They're making money with them after school and on the weekends. And then we've had students go directly into that field, working down in New York City on Broadway with the skills they developed in high school. So it's a really cool space, and if you come on Monday, you'll check it out. The two in the middle are actually work that is scheduled to be done. So our turf, track, and fence is going to be replaced this summer. So the rendering on the top is what we envision that looking like. Brand new turf, replacing the entire track and the fencing around it. The bottom drawing is actually, we have a big facilities project that'll be up for vote in January. Part of this, and I know Matt had mentioned the IB dance class. We have an IB dance class. What we don't have, and Matt reminds me all the time, is an IB dance studio. So what this is our best attempt of creating an IB dance studio. So while this is our fitness center, we're going to dedicate a portion of it for floor exercise with the bar and the mirrors and everything they need for the IB dance class. So that's just sort of a rendering of what that new dance studio / fitness center will look like. On the upper left-hand corner is our high school library. It's very similar to this, very modern learning commons space. It's actually packed during the day. I don't know, it feels cruel, but we sometimes turn students away from the library just because there's too many kids in there. There's no seats left, but it's a space that's, especially during the community lunch, it's packed with students that are there either to socialize or to get some work done. And on the bottom left is the vision of our facilities director, We have a wellness trail. It's a mile-long loop that goes through our entire campus. It's used for cross-country races as well as classes are constantly out there, just taking opportunities to enjoy the outdoors and finding opportunities to encourage that sort of outdoor learning and the creation of outdoor learning spaces. And that's the end. So questions, reflections?
First, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you coming. I know you presented to a number of board members years ago, but boards turn over a lot. So for a lot of this is new information. I greatly appreciate your time. For board members also taking it to attend another meeting. I believe you had a meeting last night as well. So, I mean, it's wonderful those weeks when you get 2 board meetings.
And tomorrow, are you going tomorrow?
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow's the Westchester Putnam School Board.
I am not going to
Oh,
that.
lucky-
Actually,
lucky
Dan
you.
is though, right?
Yeah,
Dan,
Dan.
my vice president Greg will be there. I was not able to attend that. We had for a moment, I was like, where am I supposed to be tomorrow?
That's 3 nights in a row. No, it's we're truly honored that Garrison has thought of us, that has offered us for an opportunity. We are astounded by the fact, the sheer number of students that have chosen Putnam Valley just in 2 short years. We spoke about how brave it was to be part of that first class, and we were just having our fingers crossed. I'm like, we get 1 the first year, we'll get 2 the second year, like 4 the third. So to go from 2 to 4 sophomores and from 2 incoming freshmen to 13 incoming freshmen really is exceeded our expectations of what we hoped for. And we hope that others continue to take advantage of all that we have to offer. And it's an open invitation for any new board member, any old board member. I had told Dr. Stoll before, he's welcome to come anytime he wants, right? He doesn't even schedule, just let me know, we want to stop by, visit the kids, come in. We're always open and welcome to anybody who wants to come check out what's going on there. So
Thank you.
no formal invitation needed.
Want to thank Dr. Love, Mr. Mello, for inviting me, or me just walking in last week. Yes, it's true. I am a graduate of Putnam Valley Junior High when we didn't have a high school, and I grew up there too. So, but I did want to tell the board and the community, I did have the opportunity to meet with all the sophomore and freshman Putnam Valley students who reside in Garrison. And we had a long conversation, and I have to say a few things. My takeaways were, number 1, the Garrison schools has done an excellent job preparing those students to be successful in high school. Not one of them said it's not something that we did or did not do. They were well prepared to be in high school, particularly given the regions in 8th grade really prepared them. Third thing, and I'll go back to the second in a minute, the third thing that they wanted to tell the Garrison board and the Garrison community was that that how welcoming the Putnam Valley students, faculty were. They never felt like outsiders. So what you said tonight is actually rings true with our students. The second thing that they wanted to, and I will tell the community, they would like an opportunity to come back and meet with some of our teachers. They do miss them, and Garrison has created a special place in their hearts. So we're going to look at opportunities to let our Putnam Valley students who reside in Garrison come back and visit with the teachers that impacted them in such a positive way. So thank you for taking great care of all the students from my hometown and from my current town here in Garrison. So thank you all.
Can I just make one comment? I grew up in Putnam Valley, been there all my life. I attended Putnam Valley schools, kindergarten through 9th grade, when the only building existing is the current elementary school. I then moved on and made my career in education. I started as a history teacher, guidance counselor, assistant principal at the middle school, and then ended my career at Putnam Valley as the assistant principal of the high school. To see the changes from the time when I was a youngster to where we are now would baffle any time traveler. You would be totally confused, and it would seem like a whole nother planet you've landed on. This school has progressed so many light years ahead of anything I could have ever imagined way back when we were a K-9 district. So your children will be cared for. They will enjoy it. It is a great school district. And yes, Garrison, that legacy that you provided them will continue within our district. And I stand by that as surely as I'm sitting here. And I want to thank you for inviting us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Affiliate asked, did anyone else in this room grow up in Putnam Valley? You got everyone covered? Everyone in the back?
But I worked there,
Ella?
and I was on the committee that helped design the high school.
That's right.
So do
That's
you
right.
know why the middle is blue and the sides are green?
It's the river running through the valley.
Is it really?
Yes,
I
that's
didn't
why
know
the
that.
architects designed it.
Thank you for all the light that pours in. I know my kids keep going home. I think they really like that, so.
So we just questioned that because we replaced that curved roof. You don't want to know how expensive blue roofing is? Like, who really knows that's supposed to be the river? Because if it's just green, it's gonna cost us half as much. But apparently that's out there, so we had to replace it with blue roofing. Any other questions? Anything? Please don't ever hesitate to reach out. We're easy to find. Anyone from the community, any students, staff, board members, we're welcome any feedback and happy to entertain any questions or concerns anyone may have.
Thank you. We really appreciate that. And I personally will see you on Monday evening as I have a rising ninth grader. And thank you so much for all the time you take it.
Sounds good. Take care all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. All right, Greg, we're gonna turn it back. We're now going back for the superintendent's report. And you guys are welcome to stay. We have a lot of fun later on when we get to.
No offense, but I never had to leave board meetings early.
Take advantage, Dr. Love.
It's always fun to try to get people.
Take care, all.
Bye. Bye, Ellen. Thank you for coming. Thank you so much, everybody.
Nice to meet you.
So, yes, sir.
Do you say one thing to go back to athletics? Ask a question.
Sure.
So, I recognize that you're doing well, but I'm just specifically about the 7th grade class. Boys basketball, there are no 7th graders. Soccer, how are we gonna address this? I mean, I don't want the program
we were looking at that too. I've been in conversations, both Pat Bepley, myself, their athletic director, Carl. We've been in conversations about how to ensure for both programs that we can run consistently, we can run, modified athletic programs. So we are kind of working right now of what we can do for a different type of arrangement so that we can bring certainty, so that if we're low one year and they're higher one year or vice versa, we can run it and have some certainty. I'm gonna bring that back to the board as we start to work on some logistics. What programs do we think, boys soccer is a great example. The minute that happened, I made sure I did engage with Haldane and say, like, either side, this can't happen. We gotta create a win-win situation. They had more than enough kids to field the team. We didn't have enough kids. So our kids at the time weren't able to participate because it was Haldane. But what could we do? What sort of arrangement could we have? No matter if you're a Haldane student or a Garrison student, there's a place for you to play. So if we run an A-B team or a 1-2 team, that's a possibility. If we have a no-cut system and everybody gets a chance to try out, then, or even if there has to be a cut system because of whatever reason, Garrison or Haldane kids still have the opportunity to try out. So we're working on those things. We think we'll be okay for basketball in this year, correct. But we want to make sure that in any given year, even future years that we don't know what it'll look like, if the interest is down, those few kids that want to play will have a place to play.
Can I ask a follow-up on that though? Is there a way we could address it within the curriculum to ensure that children are exposed to the sports and maybe developing an interest in it? I'm wondering if maybe they haven't, and I don't know the physical education curriculum well enough to know, they just don't feel comfortable. I know last year on the boys basketball, there were a ton of kids who've never played, and my child was one of them, but they didn't do very well, but they learned a lot in that experience.
I'm more concerned there's an entire grade where there doesn't seem to be participation. Is there a way how do we encourage kids, because all 3 of my kids played modified sports, some they're good at, some they never play. They had great experiences throughout, no matter what. So it's more discouraging to me that you have an entire grade where you're not having this participation. this experience that clearly the girls enjoy tonight. I know my kids have cherished about being in Garrison. The opportunity to play these sports where you don't have to be a star, right? You don't know how to play, you still can get an experience playing on a team and doing all these things. So that's more of my concern, that the low participation. How can we try to encourage that more? I don't know if there's anything we can really do, but.
We can look into our physical education curriculum and make sure that the sports that are readily available for students that we can do earlier. The other thing we tried to do this fall when we didn't have a soccer team, I wish I could have gotten us somebody, but run clinics. We can run after school clinics and run clinics and have kids kind of learn those skills even earlier and earlier. So those are things that Mr. Beckman and I talked about, as running a soccer clinic, maybe for fifth, sixth, maybe even fourth graders. So we're looking at, unique and out of the box ways where we can really encourage it. The problem is 1 year you may have a couple grades that are really athletically inclined, and the next thing they move up and you've got 4 kids in the whole entire grade, male or female, that want to play a sport. So I think there's not a one size kind of option here. I think we've got to look at it from a curriculum, from after-school activities, and maybe running clinics, and partnerships in a different way that we have with Howden, rather than just a handshake or, hey, this year, what do you got, what do we have? I think we have to look at it more systematically. I think all of the above approach is how we can kind of keep the athletics strong. Because as you said, it's really important. And as you heard from our 3 modified girls soccer, the life lessons that they've taken from that is invaluable.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate it.
Can I just also point out that some students are doing other activities that are just not sports. So, and they're in the 7th grade, for example, the one who's not participating. So there's plenty of active students, but they're just not in the typical sports that we offer.
Yeah, and it's important for us to remember that, Jocelyn. And at the same time, 2 things can be true. If we have 2 or 3 kids that are athletically inclined in a grade, how do we give them opportunities too? And not just say, well, sorry, we can't run it this year. And that I was personally impacted by that, being a former athlete. I was kind of personally impacted that we had like 4 or 5 kids that wanted to play boys soccer. And 4, I think out of the 5, 4 decided, I'm going to do something different. It's not what I wanted to do, but I'm going to go run track, or go run cross country. And 1 decided not to participate. So how do we avoid that in the future? And still give the wonderful opportunities that kids that are in maybe the performing arts or the visual arts, and give them opportunities too. So I think it's an all the above approach. Okay, yeah. I'm going to be very brief. This is just a couple reminders before we get into our assessment data. 1, we're at the end of our November high school visitations. You heard from Putnam Valley. On Monday, you know that there's a parent presentation, and the student tour is on November 21st at 9:30 at O'Neill. And so that's all up there. If any parents have any questions about this process, Cindy Gregorio is who to call. Just this is the first time I'll remind again, our December meeting. Our winter concert is Wednesday, December 18th at 7 p.m. And we do have a snow day on December 19th at 7 p.m. We are going to be sending out to all of the community invites. You do not have to have a student in Garrison to come and enjoy our winter concert. I've been listening to our students practice, perform, sing. They are incredible. So everybody in the Garrison community is going to get an invite, and we hope to see a packed house on December 18th. And at this time, I'm going to ask my colleagues to come up. If I can view that little tab, I'm going to try to get the presentation going. I think I got it. And I'm going to ask Alice and Allison, our building principal, to come up. And we're going to talk a little bit about our student sheet. So I wanted to let the board and the community know, every year all school districts have to present to the community and the Board of Education assessment data on how students have performed on the New York State assessments. We also want to talk a little bit about some other things, not just New York State assessments. So this evening, we're going to talk a little bit about what are the demographics that make up the Garrison student body and population. We're going to talk about how our students have done on state assessments, and state assessments are the 3 through 8 ELA and math assessments, as well as the science, 5th grade science assessment, as well as our regents, which we give, which is a living environment and the algebra. But it's not the only data we look at. So we're going to talk this evening, what are some of the other data and metrics we look at when we think about student performance, and how do we use that data? It's great to look at it, but I think it's really important for the community and the board to know, what do we do with the data when we look at it? And lastly, data comes in all shapes and forms and sizes. We also value some other things that we'll talk about this evening. So at this time, I'm going to kick it over to Allison, our building principal, who's going to walk through the presentation this evening. And at the end, we're going to be able to take any questions that the board has about the presentation. Allison?
Thank you. Okay, hi. Thank you for having me tonight. So I have many slides to go through, so I appreciate holding questions to the very end, and then we'll all filter them with my colleague Alice Cronin, who is our consulting director of innovation, and she helped me to craft this presentation for you tonight. So we're starting off with the demographic information and really understanding who our students are here at Garrison. So you can see that we broke this down between gender, ethnic groups, students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged students. And the reason why we do this is so that we can kind of drill down into the data and really look at particular subgroups to notice any specific trends, areas of possible concern, areas, of course, we're looking for strengths as well. So this demographic information is crucial when we look at the data. It's a very big piece of what we do. So the next slide just really sets up what the next few slides are going to look like. We're going to start with our state assessment data. So this will hopefully help to illustrate for you how our performance looks in terms of the trends and highlight some strengths and specific needs in all of our grades 3 through 8 and the subject areas in ELA and mathematics. So this particular chart up here will show you our ELA 3 through 5, but then on the next slide, you'll see also 6 through 8. But you'll see that roughly 75% or more meet or exceed the state standards at most grade levels for ELA. However, you notice in grade 6, 47% meet or exceed the state standards. We're going to discuss that particular grade level further in the presentation. I'm going to shift on over to the math state assessments. You'll see that roughly around 81% of our students are meeting or exceeding our state standards. There is a discrepancy, like as you'll see here in, again, grade 6, which is our current grade 7. Note that we did not include the grade 8 data in this presentation because 6 students tested, not a large sampling. Most of our students did take, many of our students took the algebra Regents exam. So in this particular chart, you'll see that we put together the ELA and mathematics data in a bar graph. We think it's, visually easier to look at where GUS sort of measures up against our 18 component districts. So you can see that in ELA and in mathematics 2, it shows areas of strength, and of course it shows that area of concern where we want to kind of zero in, which is our grade 6, current grade 7. Also tonight, we do want to share with you our Algebra Regents exam results. So this is a high school level course, and you can see that over the past 3 years, 100%, 93% in comparison to the region. Again, this is a high school level class. Many of our students do take this class. Also, we're really pleased about our science exam. All of our students are participating in the Living Environment Regents exam. This has been a shift since I'm here over the past couple of years, and we're really proud of our students. Every year, our pass rate 93%, as you can see, 96 and 95, we stay pretty consistent. And we're really proud to be able to offer this class for all of our students. I was happy to hear that Putt Valley said that they noticed that, so that was really nice. Again, here's a bar graph where you can see in terms of our Regents algebra and our living environment Regents exam, where Gus sort of ranks and measures up against 18 component districts. You can see, again, algebra, ranking 2, and in living environment ranking 5. I also want to note, I think it's important to note that this comparative data also includes high school students who take that test. And I think that's important to note. These are our middle school students, they're not yet in high school, but again, this includes high school test takers as well. Really proud of that. Okay, so Checkpoint A, we offer Spanish. And each year our students, they take what's called our Checkpoint A exam. It's a locally selected exam. So you're not going to see the comparative data. Year after year, our students perform very well on our Checkpoint A exam. The Science 5 results. So this is a new test that was administered in the spring for our grade 5. And so you can see at Garrison, 63% of our students performed well. In comparison, you see well, I say well, but in the eyes of the beholder, I think 63% ranking number 4 in comparison to local districts. I'm pretty proud. It was a really tough exam. First time that our students took it. So we're really happy with where we stand and how well our science team is coming together to sort of look at those trends and look at the data to see like what are the cross-cutting concepts that from year to year sort of emerge and how we can prepare them again in the living environment. And I know me and our environmental education teacher do that kind of work together. Okay, I'm going to shift a little bit now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about cohorts. So you'll notice that this is grades 3, 4, 5. It's for the current grade 6. So we're going to look at their trend over 3 years. It's important for us to really know now. So we're looking more like at the school level. Now we're looking at the cohort level and noticing whatever trends that we might see in the ELA. So we'll start with ELA, and here's over the course of the last 3 years. Here's the proficiency on ELA for our current 7th grade. And you'll see over the course of 3 years in ELA. And again, our current 8th grade, the progress over 3 years, achievement. And now I'll shift to math, and you'll notice grades 3, 4, 5. This is for the current 6th grade. And the current 7th grade, noticing a trend. And you can see that this is, again, an area that we're really going to focus on, a cohort. Continue to follow the cohort. This is our current 8th grade in math. And now we'll shift toward looking at the subgroups. So this is the subgroup page where you'll see like with the red lines, it's hard to see in the bar graph, but that would be like a level 3, that they're proficient. So again, you'll see that here's our different subgroups in ELA, looking at our ethnic groups, looking at special education group and low-income groups. And then if you look at this graph, we're looking at the mathematics information and the achievement. So again, all ethnic groups that make up Garrison, our special education population, the socioeconomics piece. And then what we did was we sort of drilled down a little bit further so that you can see students with disabilities. We have, roughly close to 14% of our population are students with disabilities. We also have economically disadvantaged students here too, which again, encompasses a little bit more than 10%. Those are 2 subgroups that we're looking at as well. So
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
yes.
What are the numbers on the left mean? On the first chart is 0 through 9, and the second chart is 0 through 8?
They're counts of students.
That's counts of students?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so you can see like with students with disabilities, There were several students in ELA and math that did not take the test, but the students who did, the bulk of the students are scoring at a level 2. And so again, that's an area we're looking at to see like what are some ways in which we can accelerate their learning, what are the ways in which we can close and identify some of those skill gaps, some knowledge gaps, conceptual understanding gaps, and see if we can accelerate their learning. So other pieces of data, and this is like a little snapshot from a spreadsheet that we use where we kind of take all the data and we compile it, and we include our state test scores. You can also see that we include what's called our F&P, or Fluentus and Pinnell. We have a STAR assessment, which I'll talk a little bit more in depth. We also have STAR Math and Envisions, which is part of our new math program. It's in our full third year of implementation, beginning of our fourth year. And again, we look at this snapshot data, we look at each student and looking to see what are the trends, again, what are the areas of strength, what are the areas that we really need to target. This also identifies, which I want to make clear also, which students might need enrichment or acceleration because they are high achievers, and we want to make sure that those students are identified as well. So we use our universal screener called the STAR assessment, and it's a benchmark assessment that we use 3 times a year. We also use it for progress monitoring for certain students. We might have to give it a little bit more frequently, but this is a quadrant that kind of shows, if you look at the right-hand corner, it shows like high growth, high achievement. Like we really want to see as many kids in that quadrant. In the bottom lower left, you'll see low growth, low achievement. And so we can find a report that will show us like, okay, these are the students that need RTI, which is response to intervention, or perhaps, give us information that kind of clues us in that they might need to go to committee in special education. Whatever event, like that quadrant in the lower left-hand corner suggests that interventions are necessary. So this is like, again, another little snapshot as how we utilize the STAR reports. I also want to point out, like low growth, high achievement, there are kids that fall in the other quadrants as well, and we use that information to help monitor students' progress. So in this slide, you'll see this looks familiar to maybe some of you. This is the Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 as part of our RTI or MTSS, multi-tiered systems of supports. And roughly 20% of our students, once we glean and look and analyze all the data, with our data teams through our CST, it's a child study team of process and RTI process. We identify students, and roughly 20% of our students are receiving interventions. And of those 20%, around approximately 62% of them are making progress. They make progress from fall 23 to fall 24 using the progress monitoring data. I'm going to shift now again, just to talk a little bit about data review, why we use the data, following the cohort, how we're doing our curriculum analysis and possible revisions, the professional development process, resources, our interventions. Like these are all things that we're scrutinizing and really looking at very carefully. So when we use our assessment data, we have a big goal in mind. So overall, we want to improve instruction for all. So that's every student, no matter where you fall in the spectrum of learning. We use a range of different reports that help to inform our moves and our instructional, practices and strategies. And we ask a lot of good questions when we meet at the table as a data team. To try to figure out and understand where kids might be struggling, where kids are excelling. We always want to look at their strengths and find strengths to leverage so that we can help to close those skill gaps, what strategies are working or not working, and again, identifying the resources or curriculum that's out there to help to support our students. So I'm going to go circle back to the needs of the current 7th grade. Last year's test takers as 6th graders, we see that, again, there's a worrisome trend, and I don't want to get overly concerned. I'm concerned, but we have an action plan. 39% earned a 3, 47% of 3 or higher. There's a higher percentage of students in this particular cohort also that have historically required interventions, whether it's through RTI, or the CSE, but in any event, it's a cohort that we are looking at. Some action steps that we're taking right now is to, again, look at all the data as much as we can get and create pacing guides, look at the math curriculum a little closely, working with our math teachers and really looking at, where curriculum struggles might be happening, working with our special education teachers, our interventionists, looking at the scaffolds that they're using so that students can access the curriculum and understand it and digest it and apply it. So these are all the kinds of things that we're doing currently right now with our team. So I'll give you like one example with the 6th grade math topic that it came when we were looking at one of the data reports, and this is something that was sort of a theme. We can see that there was a relative weakness in comparison to the region. So, for example, identifying when 2 expressions are equivalent. Now we know that 6th grade, it's not the first time that they see that particular concept, they see that early on. And so we really need to pinpoint, like, where is this taught in the scope and sequence of skills? Is there any professional development that might be needed? Any additional resources that we're not tapping into? Or any adjustments to the curriculum that we might need to possibly make. So now we're looking at more like a 7th grade student. So if you look at a 7th grade student, you look at grade 6 and what the expectation was, and still having to teach grade 7. Like, you can't ignore that they're in grade 7, you still have to teach that, but while also reaching back into the scope and sequence at grade 6. So these are skills that emerge for this one particular student that, okay, like, we're gonna work on some of these particular areas, but still do what's required of 7th grade at the same time. I'm going to segue into what else we value. Like Dr. Stoll shared, like, this state assessment data and all assessments and tests are one piece of the puzzle. And it's a snapshot in a child's day. And there are lots of other things that we do value here at Garrison. We all engaged in the vision of a graduate and many stakeholders here, and we came up with the skills and the dispositions. Everything we do, we filter through this lens. This is our guiding document, and we value this. And we spoke a lot tonight about foundational literacies. A lot of the assessments do really focus on those foundational literacies. And we're continuing to work on these skills. We're engaging in professional development currently right now with the consulting group, working on the science of reading. Our SAVAS reps are also working with us in our mathematics to strengthen the foundational literacies. We also value communication and expression. We've committed to this. You can see in these pictures our kids out there in the community, working on their civic seal of readiness, which is something we're also super proud of. Come on, pre-K, so cute. Our visual arts program, last year, we were so excited that Mr. Young had an art show, and he was re-inspired again, and he took all the artwork from pre-K all the way up through 8th grade, and we had a celebration at Desmond Fish Library, and it was magnificent, showcasing all of our kids' work. Of course, we value critical and creative thinking, and one of our big programs, our environmental education program, I think really helped to drive our Green Ribbon Award, which is really just all-encompassing of critical and creative thinking. And the performing arts, this is, again, we can't, this is part of who we are at Garrison. Our performing arts department as well, from Mr. Barone and Mr. Gonzalez and what they do with our pop band and our jazz band and our big band. And then, of course, our theater program and Linda Speziali with chorus. I just can't say enough about how well our kids do at NISMA. And we were in the paper. We were at the local church in Cold Spring, and they did their first gig, and it was like amazing. It just felt so amazing to watch the students. Those are achievements as well that we need to celebrate. And of course, curiosity and resilience. We want our kids to fail and get hurt and go through conflict, but then rise above it. They need to become resilient. It's what we are and what we're trying to strive for. And continue while things happen and they don't go your way. How can you still then get back on that saddle and still be curious and still want to learn and still persevere? I do want to point out, I think this is something pretty cool that, although there might be a pocket right now that are not necessarily participating in a lot of sports currently in this one particular grade, but if you look last year, we did have 77% of our seventh graders that participated in at least one modified sport. We had 91% of eighth graders participating in modified sports. Our students, they know CPR in seventh and eighth grade. Like, these are some things that I think are pretty unique to Garrison. I think the CPR is anyway, and I'm really proud of them. Of course, inclusion and celebrating our families and our cultures and who we are and the diversity that we bring here every day is a value that we hold dear in our hearts. And then integrity and empathy. That's everything. Last year, we had our kids as part of our student government. We had a student who was deeply impacted by the earthquake that happened over in Japan. And we got together and raised money, and it was like just the research on what we needed to do and extend our empathy globally across the world. It was something really special, and of course, celebrating our new bridge program. And I just want to end it by just saying thank you so much for supporting all of our efforts, and we're going to continue to work hard on behalf of the students and on behalf of the community. I'm just delighted to kind of dig in now and do work. So I'm going to pass it to you.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
So as you can see, educating students is a really complex endeavor that can't always be measured by a state assessment, yet two things can be true. You still have to look at that data and triangulate that data. So at this point, if the board has any questions about the presentation, we'd be happy to answer them.
Anyone have any questions on the presentation? First of all, thank you both, and thank you, Alex, for putting this together. I really appreciate the time and energy that went into this. Thank you.
So I do have just a couple of questions and a couple of comments. So thank you very much for putting this together. I think if I'm doing the math correctly, the seventh grade students that you're really worried about, it should be about 8 students because of the size of the cohort. And if you go back to that slide that talks about the student growth percentile, in that lower right-hand quadrant where it's high growth, low achievement.
Yep.
So if they're all falling in that quadrant, then I don't think you have to worry about them that much. So I honestly was a little surprised in the slide with all the colors in the boxes that student growth percentile wasn't one of the measures you're looking at, because that's really telling you who's growing and who's not growing. And the low growth, high achievement are the kids I would be as worried about as the low growth, low achievement. I think maybe digging in a little there, because if those 8 students are high growth, low achievement, you might never get them to that place on the state reporting, because they're just not going to do that. So that's something to think about. It would also be helpful for me as someone looking at your reports if you use a common scale. The numbers are different on all your different charts, so it's hard to judge a bar when on this one it's an 80 at the top and on this one it's a 76 at the top. I do think that based on what I was seeing tonight, I am a little worried about the growth or the lack of growth by our special education students and the number of special education students we have. And I think that's an area, because I think with the numbers you showed, that if we're giving 20% of our students AIS and special ed, that's about 42 students. And I don't see the growth there. And I know in the past, I've asked, I suggested last year that to be comparing us to the 18 component districts and KWOCs, we don't really compare to Bedford or Austining in the way that we compare to other districts. And it would be more helpful, I think, to look at us compared to similar schools. It could be in our 18 components, it could be in the regs, I think that's 65, or it could just be similar schools with similar demographics that we have. That would give us a better sense of what kind of achievement we're seeing on the state and other, and that might just be a really helpful metric for you as well.
But I will tell you, there's a lot of data you don't see. So number one, yes, we'll take that suggestion. I think they're really good ones. We can certainly, any data you want, if you want us to compare it to, we can certainly provide that data for you. Some of the data that you don't see tonight is right to what you're saying, Jen, is that we do look at individual kids and we do look at their growth over time. So you won't see it here, we didn't show you, but we'll take one of those 8 kids or so and we'll look at how do they do on the different benchmark assessments. The state assessments are a little too spread out to really see growth over time. We actually do that work. Maybe in future presentations, we'll show you without the student name. We can show you how we look at fall, winter, and spring benchmark data, and we actually look at it, but we also compare that to their growth in their F&P. We compare that to their growth, and we actually do look at the growth rate. So there are some students that if they're still, if that cohort is still at 47% the next year and they were 45% the year before, that is growth, because they have to do a year of growth to maintain that percentage of proficiency. But we're not satisfied with that. We want to continue to push all our kids to proficiency, regardless of ability or whether they're neurotypical or not. We want to continue to do that. So we'll show you how we do that next year. I think that's some great advice.
So, and I think the bigger question for us, and it was the same question I raised last year, was it's really about going from good to great. How do we move all the students who are like at a 3 state level or a little bit above grade level to further level, or to further meet really their potential? Because I think that's really the question we should be asking, as much as we're asking how are we helping the students who need remediation, how are we enriching the students to make sure that everyone's meeting the highest possible potential that they can. And I mean, it sounds like from the presentation tonight that we're really successful in preparing students for very rigorous high school courses and requirements. So how do we continue to do that and do that for everyone?
And I agree with you, and I think the board's very wise looking at next generation learning standards, which will help our kids think deeply and think more complexly. And as we start to focus on things like our STEM education and moving the ball forward and all the work we're doing in our literacy, our teachers are really working at just what you're saying, Jen. Like, our kids need to be achieving at a very high level, and they're capable of doing it. So what do we need to do to continuously improve as an educational organization, from a professional development standpoint, and from a curriculum standpoint too? All of those things are important, we agree.
One question I have for the board, jumping off of that. The Envisions math curriculum was put in place 4 years ago now, and I don't recall exactly when we had the presentation to the board. If any members, and think about it, maybe send me an email after this meeting. If you'd like to see a follow-up presentation as to how the curriculum is being implemented, what are the successes of that curriculum? We invested quite a lot as a district in not only buying the curriculum, but the professional development that went along with it. So are we fully utilizing? And just using that as one of the most recently implemented. We also have, our teachers college. We've been talking a lot about literacy due to the money we invested this year in updating it. But if there's any particular, area of curriculum that we'd like to see a presentation in, specifically diving into what is the scope and sequence from pre-K through 8 in this area, and how are we utilizing the curriculum, please let me know, and then we can communicate that. It's not gonna happen overnight, but we can get those people together, because that might be then useful from what I'm hearing to sort of dive in. And I have one clarifying question. When you're talking about the special education cohort, you're talking about the students that have an IEP, because we also have a lot of kids that sort of bump in and out of intervention as needed, correct? Just to clarify.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when we look at that aggregate data of how did our students 3 through 8 in special ed do, those are students with IEP.
Thank you. Do we have
Thank you
any
very
other
much.
questions, anybody?
Thank you, Allison.
Yes, no problem. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Now, we have a NISBA Convention Business Meeting update. Jocelyn, did you have the joy of going to that?
I owe Jocelyn the present for covering that, because I'm
I'll be so quick and say that, they have ones that you want to, that they recommend supporting, and they have a bunch that they recommend not supporting, and pretty much it all fell in line with what
What is the
except for one. that was about requiring bail in cases of violent threats against school officials. That was one that they didn't recommend, but the voting delegates who were still on the call by number 35 overturned that recommendation. Anyway,
All right,
highly recommend someone else doing it next year.
we're gonna pass it on. Although Dan did propose that maybe this is not the best use of our time.
Maybe our resolution should be called.
We can definitely.
Can we ask for absentee ballot options?
We could take a look at it and see whether, but thank you so much for taking the time to listen in and participate in that on our behalf. That brings me to public comment. I think most of the public ran away. But public comment is intended for members of the community to speak openly and voice concerns in accordance with policy 1510 of the Garrison Union Free School District. Any person wishing to speak should comply with all provisions of this policy. Comments about specific school personnel or individual students is a violation of board policy. Concerns regarding students and personnel should be discussed privately with the superintendent or appropriate administrator. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes, and speakers are encouraged to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. The board will listen to comments but will not engage in dialogue. Any necessary follow-up will be noted and provided through the appropriate channel. Members of the public wishing to comment during board meetings are asked to place their name and town of residence on the sign sheet. Commenters will be invited to the podium to address the board. Everyone has left us, so I'm gonna keep going. Accept the minutes. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District does hereby accept the minutes of the regular business meeting of October 16, 2024 as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So,
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on the minutes as presented? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Moving on to financial reports. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District does hereby accept the treasurer's report for October 2024 and does also accept the claims audit reports for September 2024 and October 2024 as presented. May I have a motion, please? Motion. Second. Do I have any questions? We are looking at we had a question on the auditor's report from September that was answered. Those check numbers are correct. If there's any other questions, I know Joe is at a conference this evening, so he couldn't be with us, but he's still working on our behalf, even though he's not sitting in this meeting. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. All right, moving on to committee reports. Dan, you're up. Facilities.
Thank you. So the Facilities Committee met on October 18th. We had one of our community members, Lefty Zagorios, was there, as well as Joe and Dr. Stoll. Myself, Eric, and Kent were there on behalf of the board. And we got a tour of the facilities and saw some of the areas, priority 1 items that the architect had recommended in the enhanced building condition survey that needed to be performed within 0 to 3 years. This includes replacement of the pre-K and kindergarten playground equipment, which is showing some deterioration and unsafe conditions. The other P1 priority items include replacing sidewalks and curbing, some of the retaining walls around the facility, front entrance stair repairs, and kindergarten patio stairs with new nosing, as well as possibly looking at the 1908 shingle roof, which is above the historic part of the building. So Joe is putting together some pricing information about those items so that we can think about incorporating them into next year's budget. That continues what we are trying to be more deliberate about in terms of figuring out what priority items we can devote some resources to on an annual basis in the way that we've looked at the gym roof this year. So picking off some of these big projects, priority 1 projects, on an annual basis to fund through contributions to capital. So we will hear more about that, I think, as part of the budget process.
Do you have any questions for Dan, Facilities Committee? Very useful that Kent is able to sit on the finance and facilities. So
Great.
Yeah.
Great resource.
Figure out how to connect the two. All right. Thank you, Dan. And your minutes were excellent.
It was all Joe. I can take no credit for this.
Joe's minutes were excellent. Okay. Moving on to CSE, CPSE recommendations, be it resolved, Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District approve the Committee on Special Education CSE and the Committee on Preschool Special Education CPSE recommendations and student placements. May I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda, be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District upon the recommendation of the superintendent hereby approves the items of the personnel consent agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please?
I have a question.
Yeah.
For parent volunteers, is there any kind of like check that's made that they're not? I mean, I know like when you come into a building, they'll scan your license and make sure that there's not a warrant out for your arrest.
Yeah, for parent volunteers, what we do is we do a Raptor system to make sure that there's no issues with it. They are always supervised, they're never alone with kids, we have staff members down there as well. Not that we would think any of our parents would, but we always, any parent volunteers that come in to read, to help sling pizza, there are staff members around the kid. We wouldn't-
But the Raptors done.
Yeah, and the Raptor's done for all of them.
And these parent volunteers are all on here to serve pizza. But anyways, we want to thank them greatly for
Absolutely.
serving the pizza to kids. Are there any others you want to touch on?
I just wanted to thank, I just wanted to welcome back our two basketball coaches that are on the consent agenda this evening, Dan and Pete, who are coming back for our girls and boys basketball. So thank you, coaches, where I am looking forward to our first basketball games on our new gym floor. I really am.
Great. Do you have any other questions regarding the consent? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Moving on to new business items. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, does hereby approve the new business items as presented. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Thank you. So on here, we have the corrective action response for the audit, which you guys all saw. If you have any questions, Joe's not here, but let me know. And then we also have the charters for student government in 8th grade. So much for putting those together. Do you have any, and a budget transfer. Any other questions on this?
I just want to make a comment. I want to thank our student government, who I just met with last week, but also met with them as they redid their charter to really make sure that it speaks to what their mission is, and then also the process in which that they elect their leaders. And then also, they also worked on revising the 8th grade officer charter to make sure that that was reflective to what their mission is. And we just had our first meeting where they are making some decisions about what additional clubs they want to possibly have in the school. And they're going to reach out to the student body to see what interests are out there. So they're actually working on not only fundraising, but also enhancing the opportunities for after-school activities for the student population. They're an incredible group of youngsters.
Any other questions? I'm going to move to a vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Brings us to our last public comment section for the evening. I'm not going to read the paragraph again. We still have no public here, so we're going to go ahead and move on to board member comment and other discussion. Jocelyn?
No comment.
Eric?
I'm good.
Okay. Jennifer?
So, Eric, I'm sad that you didn't make your plea for PTA meetings, because PTA members, because I'm gonna make a plea for anyone out there who has experience with school lunches or even restaurants to consider being a part of our budget advisory committee. We advertised it once and we had nobody respond, and we've just advertised it again. So our budget advisory committee has been charged with looking into researching about the potential of school lunch or opportunities that we might be able to take advantage of. And we would welcome anyone from the community with experience. And anyone who wants to join the PTA, we'd welcome their membership as well.
Thank you. Dan?
No comment.
Peter?
Yes.
Hunt?
Just want to thank you, whoever, Greg, particularly, but just for having high schools again. I think we've been doing this students for 4 years. It's the first time we've really done that. And I think you see the enthusiasm and really the care they're putting into our students and how much they want our students, and it's really refreshing to see. So I appreciate you bringing them in. I'm looking forward to seeing the college and bring to the table next week as well. But having kids in high school, going through this process, doing all this stuff, being here for a number of years, it's just really nice to see the enthusiasm there.
Yeah, I was really appreciative of high schools again, and I think especially when we get to our budget season and see how much of our funds we dedicate to that, it reminds us that we are a K-12 district, even though we own only this one building here. So I think it is really important. I appreciate the outreach you made to these different districts. I have nothing else this evening, so that will bring us to executive session. Be resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby enters into executive session for the purpose of reviewing probationary staff pending the award of tenure and discussing SRP collective bargaining negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law. May I have a motion?
So moved.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.